Hi there. So we get to our closing plenary session. My name is Andrew Ward. I'm the pharmaceuticals correspondent for the Financial Times. It's a pleasure to be here. The title of our session is Research and Innovation, a benefit for all citizens and a driver of growth. So I think our objective over the next hour or so is to work out how we can make that title a reality. There's no shortage of effort being put into research and innovation in the sector at the moment, but it's less clear whether this is always optimized for the benefit of citizens and to drive economic growth. We all understand the rising burden of non-communicable diseases, cancer, diabetes, dementia, that result from an aging global population. The Ebola crisis, meanwhile, the rise of antimicrobial resistance shows us we mustn't lose sight of the risks posed by infectious diseases as well. So how can we allocate resources between these very diverse challenges? How can we attract more investment? How can we increase productivity? Is it possible to produce medical breakthroughs that are affordable to society while also producing a return to investors? Some of the solutions will come from personalized medicine, genomics, digital health, big data, but can these concepts live up to the very considerable hype that surrounds them? Sharper science, more collaborative R&D, more streamlined regulation, smarter policy, all of these things will have a big role to play if we are to achieve the goals set out in the title of this session, driving innovation for the benefit of society as well as for investors. So we have an excellent panel to wrestle with these issues. Starting first with Draghia-Akli, Director of Health Research and Innovation at the European Commission. So Ruxandra, if I can invite you to the stage, and I'm hoping that you can give us the Brussels view of the Health Innovation Challenge. Nice to meet you. And would you like to take a microphone and address, well, wherever you wish, from here, from there?
That this is not a pen presentation. It works. Okay. So I'm very happy to be here this afternoon and discuss with you from our perspective what we can do more for research and innovation, and if we would be able to make the most out of research and innovation in Europe. And at the risk of being considered wishy-washy at the beginning, I would say that we are doing this sometimes, and in fact, it depends. And I would like to, from my answer, to try to convince you that at the European level, we are undertaking some activities and types of processes that basically involves everyone and which are in fact pushing forward the uptake of research and innovation into the healthcare and to the patients. So let me explain, and we'll start a bit with the big picture. As around the globe, Europe is facing the challenge of the aging population, and while life expectancy at birth have increased significantly in the last 20 years, about 5 years, unfortunately, the disability-free life expectancy didn't follow. And while we are able to prevent and treat chronic diseases in a much better way than we were, for instance, capable of doing so 50 years ago, for instance, the success rate after a heart attack of an intervention is increased by 40%, and in many types of cancers, the survival increased dramatically. There are very significant differences throughout Europe. So, for instance, the survival rate in Sweden after a cancer is 20% higher than in Poland. So, on the top of it, some very innovative solutions and interventions that can be cost-effective if we are looking at the patient. are hampered in their introduction to those patients by the upfront costs, which are limiting their availability throughout Europe. So for instance, Sovaldi for hepatitis C or Bexsero for meningitis B are very good examples of such interventions. And despite a lot of new omics coming and the inception of the individualized medicine, very many common diseases are still treated with types of interventions or drugs that are not in fact treating the patient to which they are administered. So this is not the whole picture, because also on the other side you have the public expenditure for health, which of course, it is meant to increase both for chronic conditions and chronic care, about 2% of GDP each in the next 30 years. But the challenge is that if we are looking at the healthcare costs between 2009 and 2012, in fact, it decreased in most European countries, while it increased about 5% in the previous decade. So, and if you are looking at what is coming through the pipeline, which is research and innovation, I would say that the European programs, Horizon 2020, are a glimpse of hope in what is happening in the type of crisis in Europe, which is a decrease in the budgets for research and innovation. A little also hope from the private side, because in the last year, in 2014, we have seen an increase in investment in biotech of about 2.4 billion euros compared to the previous year. So how can we learn from the European level? And I would say that much have been said about collaboration, about working together, and about the support that these models of cooperation have been putting forward. So, for instance, Europe is fostering the biggest public-private partnership in the world through the Innovative Medicine Initiative, investing with the pharmaceutical industry and other industries some 3.3 billion euros until 2020, capitalizing on another 2 billion investment that had occurred in the first iteration of IMI. Looking at, for instance, neglected and poverty-related diseases, we have developed a cooperation with the member states in the context of the European and Developing Countries Clinical Trial Partnership, again, leveraging the investment of the member states. And then we do have, and I'm very happy to see Alain Baudet here in the room, a lot of international consortia where, together with the other funding agencies, we are working to tackle very complex problems where no national funding body can do it alone. For instance, rare diseases, cancer, genome, or traumatic brain injury. So what I'm trying to say is that all this type of collaborative activity are demonstrating that we can do it if we work together. And taking the example of the personalized medicine, the right therapy at the right time for the right patient, I would say that the European example, together with the global partners, is to work with the right partner at the right time to deliver the right results. And I would say that that example will have to be capitalized on and avoid two issues. First, that those interventions are not arriving to the patient. They are uptaken in the healthcare and the health system. And then, of course, that would involve the fact that we at the European level would need to ensure that we have the right rewards, the right incentives, the right regulation, obviously foster the dialogue, including in health technology assessment. The previous speaker was mentioning it, and in fact create the entire ecosystem that would allow that the research and innovation results are in fact arriving to the patient. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Some fascinating comments there. Just a couple of follow-ups, and we have to make up some lost time, so we're going to have to rattle through all our sessions today, but I'm going to risk just a couple of quick ones. You've worked in academia, medicine, industry, now in government. I think you've spent a bit of time in the US. It gives you a great vantage point from which to assess European competitiveness in this industry versus the vibrancy that we all see in the US life science sector. How is Europe doing? Can it compete with the US?
I do believe that through these cooperation programs, and in particular through the Innovative Medicine Initiative, we are now moving towards the fact that Europe can be seen as an example of cooperation. And indeed, to be a leader, a global leader, means that you can sit together at the table with all the stakeholders, ask the questions, and then try to find common solutions. And I'm very happy that Michelle Goldman, who has been the Executive Director of Innovative Medicine Initiative, is here today. Probably will share some of the thoughts of how difficult it was at the beginning to establish this dialogue and to establish the platform, probably because the confidence among the various stakeholders was not there, and the difference that it makes. So I'm very optimistic seeing the results that are coming now from the IMI projects, including changing guidance, changing regulatory approaches, with the fact that regulatory agencies are working together within the IMI projects, that there is a lot of hope that indeed Europe will become the global leader in this arena.
Just a very quick one on data privacy, because I know this exercises a lot of debate in Brussels and within the industry. We know the concerns that exist among the public, among politicians about the privacy of healthcare data. We also know the importance of that data to making research more efficient. Can a compromise be found?
I'm an optimist, so I'm sure that a compromise will be found. Of course, that the proposal of the Commission for the new data protection regulation is now in the discussion with the colleagues from the European Parliament and from the Council. There are very different point of views. But why I'm optimistic is also because we are part of various international consortia. And I think that taking that example, we can move forward. While the data is in fact shared within the members of the consortia, so taking into account all the ethical considerations, all the confidentiality, if you wish, the data is shared in a very logical manner among the researchers and had helped very much to progress those areas. So because Alain is here, I'm going to give an example from our International Rare Disease Consortium, where this data sharing policy has been discussed and put in place from the very beginning. The goals of the initiatives are to deliver by 2020 a diagnostic means for most rare diseases, which there are about 6,000 to 8,000 of them, and new therapies for 200 diseases. We are now, the initiative was launched in 2011, and because of this data sharing, we are now at more than 3,000 diseases where a diagnostic means have been put in place, and we are at 147 therapies. So I'm very optimistic that by 2020 we will get to 240 therapies, more than what we have foreseen initially. So I think that the right use of data can create significant value, and the right way forward will be found.
Well, let's hope so. I'd love to talk more, but I'm afraid we're going to have to move on. But thank you very much for your comments, and feel free to leave the stage. Thank you.